I knew something was wrong the moment my husband stopped looking for me. That had always been his job. At every family reunion, every neighborhood party, every wedding. I'd wander off talking to someone, and 20 minutes later, Noah would smile, weave through the crowd, and say, "There you are." It had become our little tradition. So when I disappeared during my cousin's engagement party, I expected him to come looking. Instead, I heard him say 7 words that made my blood run cold. "Ryan, would you go find Claire?" The party was held at my aunt's vineyard. Long wooden tables stretched beneath strings of white lights. A live band played near the dance floor. Nearly 100 guests wandered between the patio, the wine cellar, and the gardens overlooking the lake. It was the kind of place where people constantly disappeared into conversations. No one thought anything of it. Until Noah asked the wrong man to come find me. Ryan wasn't family. Officially. He was an event coordinator my cousin had hired to help organize the evening. Unofficially, he'd been sleeping with me for almost 16 months. Affairs don't survive because people are careful. They survive because routines become invisible. Lunches, coffee, texts. A quick walk after meetings. Eventually, you stop noticing how much of your life belongs to someone else. Noah never accused me. Never searched my phone. Never asked why Ryan's name kept appearing. He simply became quieter. Kinder. Almost detached. At the time, I believed we'd finally grown comfortable together. Now I understand he'd simply stopped asking questions he already knew the answers to. The evening unfolded perfectly. Champagne, dinner, toasts, music. Ryan moved effortlessly through the crowd, making sure everything ran smoothly. Noah complimented him more than once. "Best event planner we've ever hired." Ryan laughed. "Just doing my job." Around sunset, I slipped away from the reception. The vineyard overlooked a small lake. I needed a few minutes alone. Or at least, that's what everyone believed. Ryan joined me 5 minutes later, just as we'd planned. We stood near the water, far enough from the party that nobody could hear us, close enough to return if someone came looking. "I hate this," I whispered. Ryan nodded. "We're almost done. We've been saying that for months." He reached for my hand, for just a second. Then footsteps echoed behind us. We jumped apart. Only it wasn't Noah. It was my cousin. "There you are." She smiled. "They're about to cut the cake." We followed her back toward the reception. I convinced myself we'd been lucky. I was wrong. When we returned, Noah was standing near the dance floor talking with several relatives. He looked up, smiled. "There you are." The words sounded normal. Too normal. About an hour later, after the dancing started, I wandered away again. This time to the restroom. Or at least, that's where everyone thought I was going. Ryan disappeared from the reception a minute later. We met inside the greenhouse beside the vineyard. Just 5 minutes. That was all we'd planned. Then someone called Noah's name from across the reception. "Have you seen Claire?" I froze. Ryan froze too. We waited. Then we heard Noah laugh. "I'm sure she's around somewhere." A few seconds passed. Then he said it. "Ryan." My heart stopped. "Would you go find Claire?" Silence. Ryan looked at me, looking for help. There wasn't any. He swallowed. "Sure." Noah smiled. "You always seem to know where she is." The sentence landed like a brick. Ryan didn't move. Neither did I. Outside, music continued. People laughed. Wine glasses clinked. The party carried on. Inside the greenhouse, everything had stopped. Ryan finally forced a smile. "I'll check by the lake." Noah nodded. "Interesting." Pause. I was going to suggest the greenhouse. The blood drained from my face. Ryan stared at him. Noah's expression never changed. Calm, patient, almost sympathetic. "When did you find out?" I whispered. The words barely escaped. Noah answered without looking away from Ryan. "About 11 months ago." 11 months. Every birthday, every holiday, every anniversary. 11 months of him knowing. Every memory instantly changed. The patience, the smiles, the quiet evenings. He hadn't been trying to save the marriage. He'd been waiting to see whether either of us would stop lying. Ryan finally lowered his head. "I think I should leave." Noah stepped aside. "I think that's probably the first honest decision you've made tonight." Ryan didn't argue. He walked through the reception without looking at anyone. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't look at me. Guests watched him leave. Confused. Unsure. The music continued playing, but somehow, the celebration felt over. People began making excuses, collecting coats, saying goodnight earlier than planned. Within an hour, the vineyard was almost empty. Only Noah and I remained beneath the string lights. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket, pulled out a large envelope. Divorce papers. Already signed. Already organized. Already waiting. I looked at them for a long time before asking, "Why ask him to find me?" Noah looked across the dark vineyard. "Because people look in familiar places." I frowned. I wanted to know where he'd search first. A long silence settled between us. If he looked everywhere, he was just a coworker. Another pause. If he walked straight to where you actually were, then he already knew where you disappeared. He finally looked at me. There wasn't a place you could hide. He placed the envelope in my hands, then quietly added, "I wasn't asking him to find you." Another long pause. I was asking him to show me how long he'd already known where to look. He walked toward the parking lot without another word. I stood alone beneath the lights as workers folded chairs and cleared empty wine glasses. The music had stopped. The laughter was gone. Only the sound of crickets remained. I still think about that vineyard sometimes. The lake, the greenhouse, the string lights. Not because that's where my affair ended. Not because that's where my marriage ended. But because I finally understood something I'd missed for nearly 2 years. Secrets don't survive because they're impossible to find. They survive because no one thinks to look. And the night my husband asked my affair partner to find me, he wasn't searching for his wife. He was confirming that another man already knew exactly where she'd be. The music hadn't even started when I realized my husband already knew. Not because he confronted me, not because he looked angry, because he smiled. Then he looked directly at Ryan and said, "Would you mind taking Claire for the first dance?" The entire ballroom applauded. I stopped breathing. It was my parents' 40th wedding anniversary, a ballroom filled with family, old friends, coworkers, people who had watched Noah and me build our life together. Crystal chandeliers reflected across polished wood floors. A live jazz band tuned their instruments near the stage. Servers carried trays of champagne through the crowd. Everything felt elegant. Everything felt safe. Until Noah made one simple request. Ryan wasn't supposed to be there. At least that had been my understanding. He wasn't family. He wasn't one of my parents' friends. He was a commercial architect whose firm had worked with my company for almost 2 years. Officially. Unofficially. He'd been my affair partner for 16 months. Affairs don't begin because someone wakes up wanting to destroy a marriage. At least mine didn't. They begin with conversations, shared frustrations, late meetings, text messages that become daily routines. Eventually, you stop thinking of it as cheating. You start thinking of it as another life. That's when you're most vulnerable. Because comfort makes you careless. Noah never accused me. Never searched my phone. Never asked why Ryan's name kept appearing in stories from work. If anything, he seemed calmer over the past year. Less jealous, less interested, more focused on himself. I mistook that calmness for trust. Now I know it was acceptance. The anniversary celebration was already underway when Ryan arrived. Noah greeted him with a handshake, introduced him to relatives, poured him a drink. They laughed together. The sight unsettled me, not because it looked fake, because it looked genuine. Dinner passed peacefully. People shared memories of my parents. Slideshows played across large screens. The band performed old love songs. Eventually, someone announced it was time for dancing. My father and mother shared the first dance. The room applauded. Then the MC smiled. Now let's get everyone else out here. People paired off. Couples stood. Chairs scraped across the floor. I expected Noah to take my hand. Instead, he looked toward Ryan. Ryan. Ryan looked up. Would you do me a favor? Sure. Noah smiled warmly. Would you dance with Claire? Everything inside me froze. The room didn't. People laughed. Someone joked. That's one way to avoid dancing. Everyone thought Noah simply hated slow dancing. He joked about having 2 left feet for years. To everyone else, this looked sweet. Only Ryan and I understood how impossible the request really was. Ryan stared at Noah, then at me, then back again. He couldn't finish. Noah laughed softly. Come on. You know how much she likes this song. That sentence hit me harder than if he'd screamed, because Ryan did know. This had been our song for months. Not because we'd planned it, because every restaurant we visited seemed to play it. Ryan swallowed hard. I don't think that's appropriate. Noah tilted his head. Why not? Another pause. You've spent enough time together already. The ballroom suddenly felt much quieter. Not silent, just watching. People sensed something shifting. They didn't know what. But they stopped talking. Ryan forced a smile. I think you should dance with your wife. Noah nodded thoughtfully. I have. The words landed strangely. For 10 years. He looked at me. I thought maybe it was someone else's turn. The blood drained from my face. Noah wasn't making a joke. He wasn't teasing. He was carefully placing every piece exactly where he wanted it. When did you find out? I whispered. The words escaped before I could stop them. The people closest to us heard. Heads slowly turned. Noah answered without hesitation. Last September. 9 months. 9 months of birthdays, holidays, anniversary dinners, weekend trips. 9 months of him knowing. Every memory changed instantly. The patience, the distance, the kindness. He wasn't trying to save our marriage. He was quietly saying goodbye to it. Ryan finally stepped backward. I should leave. Noah smiled politely. I figured you would. Ryan didn't defend himself, didn't look at me, didn't apologize. He simply picked up his jacket and walked through the ballroom doors. People watched him leave. Then they looked at me, then at Noah. No one knew what to say. The music kept playing. The band had no idea anything had happened. Couples continued dancing on the opposite side of the room. Life kept moving. Our marriage didn't. An hour later, the celebration ended. Guests hugged my parents goodbye. Cars disappeared into the night. Eventually, only Noah and I remained in the empty ballroom. He reached into the inside pocket of his suit jacket, pulled out a large envelope, placed it gently on the table beside me. Divorce papers, already signed, already dated, already waiting. I stared at them for what felt like forever. Finally, I managed to ask, why the dance? Noah looked toward the now empty dance floor. Because dancing tells the truth. I frowned. What do you mean? He smiled sadly. You can fake a conversation. You can fake a smile. You can fake being strangers. He paused. But people who've spent enough time together already know how to move with each other. A long silence settled between us. I wanted to see whether he'd hesitate, or whether his body already knew yours. Another pause. There wasn't a version of that dance that ended well. He stood, buttoned his jacket, looked around the empty ballroom one last time. I stopped worrying about losing you a long time ago. Then he quietly walked away. I still think about that song. Whenever I hear it in a restaurant or on the radio, I'm back in that ballroom, watching the man I thought I'd hidden from my husband being asked to dance with me in front of everyone we loved. The worst part wasn't that the affair was exposed. It wasn't the divorce. It wasn't even watching Ryan leave without looking back. It was realizing my husband hadn't asked for the dance because he wanted to embarrass us. He asked because he already knew something I didn't. Some relationships reveal themselves without a single word. All they have to do is take one step together. The question sounded harmless. That's what made it so dangerous. My husband smiled across the dinner table, looked directly at Ryan, and asked, "So, how does Claire sleep?" Nobody else reacted. Why would they? It sounded like small talk. A funny question. Something people asked when conversations started running out. Only Ryan and I knew there was no safe answer. The lake house weekend had been Noah's idea. 3 couples, 1 rented cabin, fishing during the day, cards at night, a chance to disconnect. Those were his words. Disconnect. The irony still makes me sick. Ryan wasn't supposed to be there originally. He'd been invited only a week earlier after another couple canceled. Noah suggested it. I didn't. I wanted as much distance between my 2 lives as possible. Noah kept bringing them together. At the time, I thought it was coincidence. Now I know better. Ryan and I had been having an affair for almost 18 months. Long enough that we stopped thinking about ourselves as people having an affair. We simply thought of ourselves as people in love. That's the lie affairs tell. They convince you the secret relationship is the real one. Everything else becomes the performance. Noah never seemed suspicious. He stopped asking where I'd been, stopped checking in during work trips, stopped wondering why Ryan's name came up so often. I mistook his silence for trust. It wasn't trust. It was observation. The first day at the cabin felt normal. Fishing, barbecue, too much beer, stories around the fire pit. Ryan fit in surprisingly well. He laughed with Noah, played horseshoes with him, even helped him split firewood. Watching them together made me uncomfortable. Not because they disliked each other, because they got along too well. Late that evening, everyone settled around the fireplace. Rain tapped softly against the windows. Someone suggested telling embarrassing stories. The room filled with laughter. One by one, everyone shared something. Childhood accidents, college mistakes, funny memories. Then Noah looked at Ryan. "You probably know Claire pretty well by now." Ryan smiled carefully. "I'd like to think so." I felt my stomach tighten. Noah nodded. "Then maybe you can settle something." Ryan laughed. "Sure." Noah leaned back in his chair, completely relaxed. "How does Claire sleep?" Silence. Not outside. Inside me. My heartbeat became so loud I barely heard the rain anymore. Ryan frowned. "What?" Noah smiled. "You know, curled up? On her back? Steals the blankets?" Everyone laughed. My sister-in-law joked, "This should be good." Nobody understood. Not yet. Ryan looked at me, just for a second, looking for help. There wasn't any. "I don't know." He laughed nervously. "I've never really noticed." Noah nodded slowly. "Really?" Another smile. "That's funny." Pause. "Claire hasn't slept on her back in almost 2 years." My blood ran cold. He wasn't talking to Ryan anymore. He was talking to me. Ever since her shoulder injury. Another pause. She curls up on her left side every night. Ryan looked down. Because he knew. He knew exactly how I slept. He knew I tucked one hand under the pillow. He knew I stole the blankets when the room got cold. He knew I couldn't fall asleep without the fan running. He knew everything. But admitting any of it would destroy us. Noah watched him carefully. Not with anger, with curiosity. The way a teacher watches a student during an exam. Finally, Ryan shrugged. I guess I never paid attention. Noah smiled. I don't believe you. The room became quiet. Not completely, but enough. Enough that conversations at the other end of the cabin started fading. People sensed something. They didn't know what. Only that something had shifted. Noah reached for his drink, took one slow sip, then asked another question. So if you don't know how she sleeps, how do you know she snores when she's exhausted? The world stopped. Ryan's eyes widened. Mine did too. He'd forgotten. Months earlier, Ryan had teased me about snoring after a weekend trip we'd taken together. Later that same week, during a group lunch, he'd made the exact same joke. At the time, everyone laughed, including Noah. I suddenly remembered Noah asking, "How would you know that?" Ryan had covered it with another joke. Apparently, Noah never forgot. When did you find out? I whispered. The words escaped before I could stop them. Noah looked at me. For several seconds, he said nothing, then answered quietly. Last winter. 8 months. 8 months of birthdays, vacations, anniversaries, family dinners. 8 months of him knowing. Every memory changed shape instantly. The calmness, the patience, the distance. He wasn't trying to save the marriage anymore. He was waiting for the truth to arrive on its own. Ryan stood. I think I should head home. Noah nodded politely. I think that's probably best. Nobody stopped him. Nobody knew why he was leaving. Only 2 people in that cabin understood. Ryan walked out into the rain. Didn't look back. Didn't look at me. Didn't say goodbye. The evening ended shortly afterward. People claimed they were tired. Went to bed early. The cabin grew quiet. Later that night, Noah and I sat alone on the back porch. The rain had stopped. The lake was perfectly still. He handed me a large envelope. Divorce papers. Already signed. Already prepared. Already waiting. I wasn't testing him, Noah said quietly. I looked up. I was testing you. I frowned. What do you mean? He looked out over the water. If he'd answered, you would have watched another man describe things only a husband should know. He paused. If he lied, you would have watched the man you risked everything for abandon you. Another long silence. There wasn't an answer that saved either of you. I still think about that question. How do you sleep? Such an ordinary sentence. One people ask every day. But the worst part wasn't being exposed. It wasn't the divorce. It wasn't even watching Ryan leave. It was realizing my husband had found a question with no right answer. A question so simple that everyone else thought it was conversation. While only the 3 of us knew it was the moment my marriage finally stopped pretending it was still alive.